thing becomes not to look for miracles, but find them where there isn't one. When holy water was rare at best, it barely wet my fingertips, but now I have to hold my breath like I'm swimming in a sea of it. It used to be a world half there, heaven second-rate hand-me-down, but now I walk with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy now. Read a questioning child's face and say it's not a testament. That'd be very hard to say. And see another new morning come and say it's not a sacrament. I tell you that it can't be done. This morning outside I stood and saw a little red-winged bird shining like the burning bush and singing like a scripture verse. Made me want to bow my head. I remember when church let out, how things have changed since then, 'cause everything is holy now. Used to be a world half there, heaven second-rate hand-me-down, but now I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy now. Everything, everything, everything is holy now. Let me hear you. Everything, everything, everything is holy now. Everything, everything, everything is holy now.
Brian Dozer, I love that. Mendoza.
So quick announcement. It appears today of all days we're having trouble with our live streaming, but we are recording it, so we will post it later. I'm getting the thumbs up. We are live streaming. Ignore what I just said. I tell people I'm always the last to find stuff out, and they don't believe me.
And can you do something about the heat?
We're working on the heat. We're working on the heat. Working on it. So today at our 9 o'clock pre-service meeting, I asked Cheryl how she would love for me to introduce her, their bio or something to read. And Cheryl said, I'm so tired of hearing about myself. Just say I'm an old friend of the church. So I'm not going to tell you that she's a best-selling author from the New York Times. I'm not going to tell you some of the other book titles like Take Time for Your Life, Stand Up for Your Life, The Unmistakable Touch of Grace, and her latest edition available in our bookstore to be signed by Cheryl afterwards, Waking Up in Winter. So make sure you get your copy and have her sign it. I'm not going to tell you all the TV shows she's been on. Her work has been covered, like Good Morning America, Today Show, CBS. I'm definitely not going to mention the fact that she accompanied Oprah Winfrey on her Live Your Best Life nationwide tour. So, yeah, none of those things I'm going to tell you. But I am thrilled to meet her today for the very first time and to be a witness to her, ladies and gentlemen, a very old friend of the church, Cheryl Richardson.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness gracious. I'm going to get you back. I'm telling you, it's just a matter of time, my friend. Those people who know me know I mean it. No. Thank you so much. Thank you. It's wonderful to meet you. I'm so glad to know that you are here leading this church. He's a really, I don't have to tell all of you, he's a really lovely, kind, warm-hearted man, and it was wonderful to be able to spend some time with you beforehand and get to know you, and the church is better for you being here. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And better for all of you being here. My goodness, what a rocking place this is. Yes, you are adorable. Yes, I mean, you're all adorable. You're a great dancer. My goodness. Wow. And Brian, my goodness, like I had no idea. Like I know Bruce, one of my dearest friends surprised me and showed up. Bruce, I'm so happy you're here. And I was thinking, isn't the music awesome? I know. Bruce is really into music like I am. And what a wonderful way to begin. Let me also just welcome and say hello to those that are watching the live stream as well. I'm glad, and thank you all for being here on this really wonderful morning. I woke up and I got dressed, and as soon as I went out the door, I was being pelted by ice, and I thought, really? Really? On Thursday night, I had to drive to Concord, New Hampshire to give a talk, and I left at 4 o'clock, just when the snowstorm started. And so I was driving in the snow going, really? Come on. But you know, we are blessed to live in a very interesting, ever surprising place, aren't we? Yeah, I love that about New England. You know, it's so funny coming here to give a talk. I never prepare for talks anymore. I really just show up and sort of get a sense for the room, and I just trust. You know, this is one of the great things about getting older. You really do just trust in the divine and in your intuition, and you just sort of say, listen, you just take over and help me to say what I'm going to say. However, when you've got a certain amount of time to speak, and it's a reduced sort of time, then you do have to do a little preparation. So there's a couple of pieces that I am going to read from my book as a part of the talk, but don't worry, I'm not going to read for a long time. It's just that I wrote it already, and I wrote it much better than I can remember it, so. Everything is Holy Now was such a beautiful choice. Like I sat there thinking, don't cry, you'll just run your makeup before you get up here. But it was just such a beautiful choice of music to begin with, because my experience of midlife is that my experience of midlife, when you're committed to your own spiritual evolution, when you're really consistently entertaining a relationship with your soul, which is what we are, souls here, right? My experience is that everything indeed does become holy. And what a great payoff that is, huh? I woke up this morning and I lifted my head from the bed and I watched. This was really early, believe it or not. The sun was rising. And there was actually light. I saw this beautiful orange-red glow coming up through the trees, behind the trees. And I laid there and just watched it happen. And I thought about the day and what my intention was for the day. And then I got up and I went downstairs and I put the tea kettle on and put on a coat and went out to the back deck with a big pitcher of water. And went out on the back deck, as I do every morning, and washed out the little bowls that I have for the birds and the animals, and filled them with fresh water, and then took the empty bird feeders down. I think there's a raccoon that's already visiting. Took the empty bird feeders down and filled them with seed, shellless sunflower seeds. My birds eat high-end food. And so filled the bird feeders, filled the one feeder with this wonderful peanut butter pack of something or other that's homemade, that I get at the bird seed place down at the Rotary. It's wonderful to be able to, you all know what I'm talking about. And there's a gal who makes the it looks like a suet pack, but it's peanut butter, and I refilled one of those for the starlings that are now here and that are just so thrilled, and sprinkled some seed around because the squirrels are going to come, I know, and it's like, might as well just feed them rather than watch them try to get into the squirrel-proof bird feeder. I went back in and made myself a cup of tea and took out this little silver $20 gadget that I bought on Amazon called a milk frother. Right? Yeah. Awesome self-care gift to oneself. And I poured some raw almond milk in and frothed up the milk and put it in my tea. And I went and I sat down in the living room just to watch the bird feeders, and I thought, these are the little things that I used to dream about doing when life was so busy and I lived on the road, and I was caught up in accomplishing and succeeding, and really caught up, I will say, in the householder stage of life, the second stage of life where we go out and we build families and we build careers and we build businesses, and we do really wonderful things. We bring our gifts to the world, and we bring our gifts to ourselves and our loved ones, and we earn a living, and we, save money and buy a home, and all of those sorts of things. As I got towards the latter stage of that period of my life, I realized that it was these little things, these little holy things. They are so holy. Everything really is holy that I miss the most. So I want to just start by reading a little piece out of Waking Up in Winter. This book is an answer to a calling. It's a kind of calling that all of us get at different times in our lives, where we realize that what used to work is no longer working. And we start to question the direction of our lives, or we question the direction of just our own hearts and minds, and we start to feel uncomfortable, or frustrated, or irritated, or resentful, or depressed, or just distressed in some way. And we start to try and figure out what's going on, and we're not really sure because we're just doing everything we've always done, and there wasn't a problem before, and suddenly there is a problem. Things just aren't working the way that they used to work. And this happened for me when it came time for me to write my next book. I realized something really scary, and that was I felt in my heart and in my soul as a soul that I had written everything I needed to write about self-care and work-life balance and emotional, physical, and spiritual health, and I had nothing else left to write, and a publisher who was waiting for my next book. But when you make a commitment to your own spiritual evolution, you have to live the truth. You can't do anything but that. And I was very grateful to have a husband who's also a writer and who knows me well and who shares my own journey of spiritual evolution, who really challenged me to do something different. And he said, all your life you've written journals, you've kept journals. You love May Sarton, who was from this area. Some of you may know who she is. I was passionate about a writer who wrote a series of journals throughout her life, and I read every one, many more than once. And he said, you love May Sarton, and she wrote about what it was like to be a creative woman in the 20th century, and I think it's time for you to do that. Show people what it's like to live an examined life, committed to growth and healing in the 21st century. And I felt two things simultaneously, totally excited and jazzed about the idea, and terrified. The two things that I've always told people for years and years and years as a coach, students, people who have come to hear me speak, that when you feel terror and excitement, it's usually an indication you should move forward. So I went back and pulled a journal out that I had already written because I knew I would be too self-conscious to start keeping one. I'd be thinking of you instead of me. I pulled out a journal that had already been written, and it was a journal that I started after I turned 50, the magic age of 50. So this is just a little piece of the beginning I want to share with you. As I mentioned earlier, when I said these are the little things I dreamt about doing, I wrote in the journal, these are the little things I dream about doing during long car rides to the airport, or when staring out the window of an airplane, traveling to yet another city to speak. I'm growing tired of hearing myself say, I'm looking forward to, fill in the blank. Think about how many times you say, I'm looking forward to. That's a really important spiritual practice. Fill in the blank, followed by a bittersweet sadness rising in my chest. I need to stop looking ahead and start asking, what am I doing now that keeps me looking forward to something else? And why am I doing it? I'm preoccupied with how I spend my time these days, and I can trace the source of this feeling to my 50th birthday. That morning I went downstairs, got on the treadmill, and began to watch a movie on TV. At the end of the first commercial break, I realized I had no idea what the story was about, as the significance of this birthday hit me full on. 50 years old, midlife, more years behind me than lay ahead. I'd heard all the cliches before, but they always applied to someone else, parents, aunts and uncles, older friends. Now they belong to me. Rather than avoid the subject of dying, I made a decision to dive into it, which I think is also a really smart spiritual practice. I shut the TV off and started thinking, what will life be like when I'm in my 80s or 90s if I live that long? Will I enjoy good health or spend my days slumped over in a nursing home chair? Who will handle my things when I die, my journals and the cards and letters I've stashed away in the old cedar trunk in the garage? Will I outlive Michael, my family members, and my friends? How old will I be when I leave the planet? I thought about what I'd regret not having done before I died, and a few answers immediately sprang to mind. Live peacefully in my body. Make beauty and nature more of a priority in my everyday life. Be less defended and more open to others. Let go of my self-consciousness and be bolder with my choices. These regrets may not be typical bucket list items, but they reflect what's always been deeply important to me, the inner adventure. I'm passionate about self-development and challenging myself to grow as a person, seeking out experiences that contribute to the evolution of my soul. I have been since I was a little girl. And I actually think a lot of that was inspired by my early religious upbringing as a Catholic girl in the early days with the beauty, being immersed in the beauty of the church and developing a personal relationship with Jesus, a childlike relationship that would grow into a sort of buddy relationship later on. Before I pushed the reality of mortality back into the shadowy corners of my consciousness, I had to admit that as frightening as it was to think about my expiration date, it was strangely comforting as well. Death isn't wishy-washy. It doesn't fool around. When I'm done, with this life anyway. So I'd better make damn sure I'm doing what I really want to do right now. Thank you. Thank you. That journal entry began a really important time in my life. Really, it began a hero's journey. And many of us have heard of the hero's journey, right? Joseph Campbell talked about it so long ago on the PBS special with Bill Moyers, and the title of that special, do you remember that, Bruce? The Power of Myth. Yes. Right? Power of Myth. Yes. I strongly recommend, if you've not seen that, I've seen it a number of times. It is really, really powerful. And the way I describe in very simple terms the hero's journey, so that you can see whether or not this fits for you, is the hero's journey, it fits for all of us at different points. It's really a question of what's going on in your life right now. The hero's journey is when there is a call for something more, something different in our lives. And it begins a descent period where what used to work no longer works, where who we used to be, like who we are and who we've been, no longer works. We just start to notice there's a discomfort with the same old, sometimes relationships, the work that we do, the place that we live, the body that we inhabit, whatever it might be. There's a call for something different, and it begins this descent period. And it's almost like I imagine for myself anyways, as I began this descent period, while I had a year's worth of events booked and, I had, my whole life was mapped out a year in advance, which is what happens when you're a writer and a traveling speaker, this descent began for me, and I suddenly found myself evaluating everything and realizing, just feeling uncomfortable in my skin and uncomfortable in my life. And as the descent happens, we eventually enter into the second stage of the hero's journey, which is the mystery. And this is a very interesting stage where we have no idea what's going on. Like, what the hell is going on? Can I say hell in church? Awesome. What the hell is going on? Yeah. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know where I fit anymore. And this can happen, by the way. I see this in people in their late 20s who go through, who are, heading towards 30, and that's usually when people start thinking, okay, do I want to take the road that everybody else takes? Or am I going to really honor this sort of inner prompting that feels different than everyone else? Or when you go through a divorce, or sometimes when you get married, or the diagnosis of an illness, or the death of a loved one, or the death of a pet, which I've experienced again in the last 3 months and have experienced a whole new hero's journey. There's all kinds of things that can happen that sort of create that descent. We wind up in the mystery, and it's what I like to call limbo, lingering in limbo. I tried to make it sound better because it was so uncomfortable. Lingering in limbo, right? When I was in that place, you question everything. And it's scary because you really don't know where you're headed. And you can't go back. How many of you have ever had that experience where you start to move forward and you think, no, I don't want that, I'm gonna go back. And you can't, right? It's really scary, you just can't go back. So you're sort of in the mystery, and I remember I was in this place for quite some time, and one morning I woke up and I just thought, what the hell am I doing? I have a business, I have a career, people are waiting for my book, I've got to go out and teach, I got to get my act together here. The CEO woman in me was just trying to get it together. And I remember I called my coach at the time. I had this wonderful coach I was working with. She's a dear friend, Ellen. And this is what happens in the mystery. I was saying to her, I don't know what's going on. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't like anything I'm doing. This isn't good. And I've got to do it for the next year. How am I going to figure this out? And I said to her, I'm just all over the place. I am all over the place. And I can't grab a hold of anything and go, this is me, or this is what's next, or this is what I want. And I said, I don't even think, and this is while I was editing the book, I said to her, I don't even think I'm ever going to write again. And she listened to me, and then she went, okay, take a deep breath, which I did. She said, first of all, you will be writing till the day you die. So I just want, this is how we know the place you're in right now is a little insane because you're going to be writing till the day you die. But then she said something that really helped me. She said, your meandering has purpose. And instantly I felt better in my body. It was as though the CEO woman took a deep breath and went, okay, great, this is a productive form of action. We'll hang out here. Really, that's what happened. So she calmed down, and what happened was the artist now had a place, more space in my life. You see, I've been teaching a long time, people. I'm 58 now. I've been out there in the world teaching lots and lots of people. And if there's one thing I've learned is that we're all artists and healers, hungry to express our creativity and our healing energy. It's just that we live in a culture that doesn't value artists and healers. And it's our responsibility to really value it for ourselves and to bring it to the world, which is what this book was for me. I knew the artist in me wanted to publish. I didn't want to tell you what you needed to do to live a great life anymore. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's right for some people at the right time. It's right for a lot of people at the right time. But I wanted to show you what it means to live a conscious, examined, awakened life. Well, let me say it this way. I wanted to show you what it means to try to live a conscious, awakened life committed to truth. Because just like everybody else, there's this thing called emotional regression, which means you can have it all together, and then when something tough happens, you'll lose it. And suddenly we go right back to the early behaviors and defense mechanisms that kept us safe as kids. And, you know, I can write all the books I want about extreme self-care, and my life can go into a state of extreme disrepair very, very quickly. The difference is I know how to get myself out of it. This journal that I made a decision to publish really sort of takes the reader on a journey of what it means to linger in limbo. Doesn't sound very exciting, does it? But it actually is really important. And if there's one message that I got at the end of editing this book, because all my books teach me something, it's that when in doubt, when in the mystery, wait longer than you think you should before you make any other choices. I can't stress that enough. You know, God, the divine, the creator, intelligence, I promise you, has a plan for you in your life. You are connected to that plan. You are connected to God. We as souls are a part of the divine mystery. And there is a plan for us. And that plan will reveal itself to you the longer you wait and steep in the truth of who you are right now and what's important to you. The longer you commit to figuring out what's important to you. And this particular journal helped me to figure that out. And what happens then is I began to leave from that mystery state. The mystery phase of the hero's journey begins the ascent, where there's this little tiny, teeny pinhole of light. So you know there's light. You have no idea how far away it is, and you don't know what's behind the door, but you know that there's light. And there's a sense of hope and renewal and trust and faith. Because in the mystery part, I questioned my faith. I mean, I questioned everything. You do question everything. You need to question everything. It's a good time. It's a good practice. And whether you're 28 or 48 or 58 or 78 or 88 or 98 or 108, because, you know, life is expanding, so I got to include everybody. It's a really good thing to question everything in your life. You know, one of the things that happened during this journal keeping was I dealt with the death of Debbie Ford, my dear friend and colleague. Some of you may know who she is. She was a writer. She spent some time on Oprah with me. We often traveled at the same events. We coached each other. I was so blessed to be at her deathbed before she died. I'm very comfortable with death at this point. I don't like it, but I'm comfortable with it. And I was grateful to be with her. And one of the things she said to me before she left her body was really strange and profound, which is just like Debbie, strange and profound. Debbie said to me, "Stop doing things that bore you." I mean, think about that, right? She said, you know, take more vacations, which she always said. Debbie was great at taking vacations. I wasn't. And, but we had this very profound conversation about doing things that bore us. And that became the kind of measuring tool that I used and it continued to use in my life. And you can use it in a number of ways. When you're having dinner with certain people, you can ask yourself, use your inside voice, not your outside voice. Am I bored right now? Can you just pass me the water? Just right, perfect. Thanks, sweetheart. Perfect, thank you. You know, don't tell them in that moment. No, but in the, you know, because let's face it, it works two ways. We've got to make sure we're not boring either. One time my husband and I were out to dinner together. And I know this is live streaming, but we were out to dinner together, and I could tell my husband's a very bright man, and he doesn't, like me at this point in life, he doesn't have a lot of patience for cocktail-level conversation. It's just boring, right? You got a limited amount of time left. This is the gift of death. You know, you've got a limited amount of time left. You want to really live, right? And we were in the middle of having dinner with a couple of friends of ours. It's two women, and just out of the blue, he said, "So, what do you think happens when we die?" And both of them sort of looked at us like, and we proceeded to have the most unbelievable conversation for the rest of our time together. And we've used that several times as a result. Yeah, you can use that. But come up with, like, I should just do a whole questions book about how to take boring conversations to a deeper level. But I digress. Let me try to get back to the everything is holy moment. But really, that was a very, very important question that Debbie, or statement that she made to me that then had me really begin to look at things. You know, it's scary when you realize, like for me, you know, I would travel and I would be speaking, I would get on stage in these big, beautiful theaters with thousands of people in the audience. And so many people would love that opportunity, right? People come up to me all the time saying, I want to do what you do. And during this journal period, I realized, as sexy and as exciting as that appears, it was becoming boring to me. I had done it, and I was good at it, and I'd been doing it for years, and somebody said to me at one point, sweetheart, when you master something, when you've been there, done that, and you've mastered it, you kind of get bored, because the only way we're not bored is when we're growing and evolving and taking things deeper. And so while I still do some, and I do a lot less, which makes it not boring because it's exciting, but what I really wanted was smaller engagements with people. It's why, you know, I started leading retreats up in York, Maine at the Stage Neck Inn. Just 2 retreats a year, yeah. And I just bring 50 people together and do these and I mean, this was born out of this, where I just decided, you know what? Here's the other great thing. You know, when you hit midlife, your suck-it-up muscles go slack, which is a good thing. You lose a filter or two, right? It's gotten me into a little bit of trouble. And I find, as I move to the latter stage of my life, I find that and I think this is true for the world, we need to bring more of the divine feminine in, because the hypermasculine is going to kill us all. Now, I'm not talking about men and women, I'm talking about masculine and feminine, right? And so I needed to make a shift from being the gladiator, the hypermasculine, to the chalice. And the chalice is about presence and receptivity and being open and trusting that life has a better plan for you than you could have for yourself with your crazy mind. And in that openness, you allow life to bring you what's next. And that's really what I began to cultivate. And I began to cultivate that in my work, so that when I decided to do the retreats, I basically said to people, if you're looking for a linear, agenda-driven, you know, experience, I'm not the gal for you. Because these events are going to be organic, present moment, created, engaged conversation. And that was just one example of a very significant shift I made in my work as a result of the hero's journey that I went through. All of that is inspired by turning 50, which there's something really magical about that number. It really is like a come to Jesus age, isn't it? It's kind of a cool thing to think about. And also losing loved ones. There's something really, we were talking earlier about even, you know, losing, you know, I write about Poupon, my cat, in the book, who I lost just in November. And even the loss of an animal, which was probably the hardest loss I've ever grieved, because they're so much a part of your everyday life and they're so unconditionally loving. It just made me appreciate the preciousness of this life and to be less afraid, bolder, much like the things that I said in the beginning that I wanted. That's the gift of just considering our own mortality. So I'm going to finish with another journal entry, and part of the reason I thought of you when I was when you were speaking, part of the reason, Mickey, that I chose this one is because it starts with, today I can feel a tiny hint of spring stirring in my body, and I'm trying to will spring, which I know is not very present moment, but I'm still a work in progress, people. So I'm going to read you this part, and then we'll go into the meditation. Today I can feel a tiny hint of spring stirring in my body. Outside it's sunny and 40 degrees. I went for a long walk in the neighborhood early this morning and then again later at the beach. That's Plum Island. As I walked along the shore, lulled by the steady roar of crashing waves, I closed my eyes and imagined gliding on a boogie board in the heat of the summer, the way I used to when life was simpler and I was in the habit of having fun for its own sake. It's good therapy. These days, as I consider the new emerging priorities in my life, I continue to be guided by thoughts about death. That sounds dark, I know, but in this case, it's not. I'm learning to befriend the part of me that feels the need to keep my mortality on the front burner. When I find myself suffering for too long in order to write a gracious email saying no to a request, or feeling frustrated while lugging last-minute packages to the post office before they close, I ask myself, am I doing what I really want to be doing in this moment? Is this how I want to spend my energy? Can I share the wealth and allow someone else to do this so I have more time and space for what matters to me? I'm trying to get a fresh perspective, to step back from the routines that define my day in order to see how satisfied I am with the choices I'm making. Our lives are shaped by the actions we take every single day. From the mundane errand or the therapy session to the project we take on at work or the conversations we have with our friends, our partner, or our pets. I want to stay awake. I want to stand witness to the choices I make that sculpt this one precious life. I want to stay connected to who I am today, not reflexively serve the person I've been in the past. At times like this, thoughts of impermanence are a gift if we're brave enough to entertain them. For most of us, the thought of death is a frequent guest, one who continues to visit despite the fact that we do our best to ignore her. I'm making friends with this visitor because I know she has something vital to teach me. Stand back, she says. Observe your life. Stay tethered to your soul. So join me in closing your eyes and taking a deep breath. Feel your feet on the floor and your body in the chair. And you might even put your hand on your heart and say to yourself quietly, I love you, sweetheart. I love you. I'm so glad you're here. Let's really live this life. Let's stop doing things that bore us. Let's stay awake. Let's stay tethered to our soul. And just take a few moments to think about what that means to you. Allow that little voice inside to let you know even just one thing you want to be doing more of, or maybe less of. Take your time. as we listen to the falling rain. It's so clear that this is a holy moment. And when you're ready, you can come back to the room and open your eyes and smile. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cheryl. As you were speaking, I leaned over to my friend Rana and I said, this is why I do this job, because it is so not boring. So not boring. So I'm going to invite you guys back into prayerful energy for a moment. Just take a moment and settle back into your hearts, maintaining that bliss moment of the piano notes, the raindrops, as we bring into our mind's eye and our heart center those people who we hold in prayer. The names in this prayer box, our loved ones for whom we hold a different outcome from whatever circumstance they're in. Hold that intention for them, that indeed, remembering that every moment is holy, that every period that may seem dark will eventually open to the light, and that we are here to support, to love, to hold that sacred container for them as they make their way into their fullness and their wholeness. Should you hold that intention and prayer for people in your life, I invite you to say their names out loud now. In so doing, we are affirming that we too are the presence of divine in their life. That we too are the face of God for them. That every situation that they are in is an opportunity to live their divinity, to discover the depths of love that is God, and to be whole. And so it is. So let it be. Amen.
You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me.
Thank you so much again, Cheryl. That was wonderful. I think you were speaking to me directly. Did anyone else feel that way? No, it was me. No. Can I get Ellen's phone number? And I'll be over your house in the morning for some birdseed. Tasty. Sounds good. All right, so as we get ready for our tithes and offerings, because you know that's how we function as a church, as you prepare those, I'd like to bring attention to our beautiful souls that are our prayer chaplains. If you may stand if you're able. They're here for you to listen to a prayer, whether it be for gratitude or if you need help with something, or if it's just you're not feeling your own divinity. They'll sit with you and listen and help you with that. They're available right after service. We also have something called home and hospital prayer chaplains. Is anybody from that chaplaincy here? Catherine. We also have Annie. Thank you. They're available to visit hospital or home visits for those folks that can't get out, that would love to have somebody to do prayer with. You can see them. We have a prayer request box, as you know, back, and we also have a prayer line on our website for the phone number to call 24/7, and then those prayers are sent to Silent Unity for an additional time to be prayed over. So as we get our tithes together, let's hold them and say our tithes and offering affirmation together. Divine love as me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive.
As you share your tithes and love offerings, just a reminder that you can also give online, especially those of you viewing the live stream, unityontheriver.org/donate. We would love for you to go set up a reoccurring gift and tithe that way. Those of you who are who love playing with their Apple Pay on their phones, we accept Apple Pay on our website, so go to that page as well. Also want to remind you, Waking Up in Winter, Cheryl's latest release, is in our bookstore today, and she'd be happy to sign a copy after she greets you in the receiving line, so make sure to pick that up today. And finally, starting next Monday, if you really want to get out of the boredom and really jumpstart things, join me for the Absolute Abundance class. How many folks have taken Absolute Abundance here so far? There you go. You still have half the course to finish. You better come on back. I'm calling you out. Calling you out. Just because you laughed, calling you out. He doesn't mind. We got a thing going on. He doesn't mind. Let me see those hands again. Look around. If you've taken this class, look around. Connect with one of these folks and interview them about how this class has kind of pulled their spiritual life from the inside, pulled it out, tossed it around, flipped it over, and put it back in a renewed way. It's probably one of the most transformative classes that I have taught. It was created by one of my classmates in seminary, Reverend Ken Daigle. He's in San Francisco. This is a class that really, really transforms how you view the concept of living an abundant life. Living an abundant life in all aspects of your life. It is a monumentous shift. So talk to some of these people. You can still sign up today. It's a 10-week class. After the first 2 weeks, we're closing it to newcomers, so you can even come the first, second week to sample, try it out, see if this is something you want to continue doing. But of all the classes you can do here, this is probably one of the most transformative. It's also a class that's required for membership, an abundance class. So I hope to see many, many more of you in it. And those of you who've taken it already, don't spoil the moment. You know the moment I'm talking about. You know the moment that causes some of you to panic and almost lose your breath a few times. Don't spoil it, okay? Just wait, because I gotta tell people no spoilers. Come on forward, ushers, please. Thank you. And let's bless this offering. So go into a place of gratitude within your hearts. We give thanks for the gifts we receive here today. Those of you who give in this moment, those of you who give online, remembering that as a self-sufficient organization, when we give, we're not simply investing in this spiritual community called Unity on the River. We invest in our own spiritual growth, our own spiritual expansion. We're being part of the flow. And by giving, we open up ourselves even more to the abundance that is limitless universe, limitless God, limitless joy, limitless love. And so it is, and so we let it be. Amen and amen. Thank you. Back to you, Mickey, I think. All right.
Yes, sir. Now it's this time, thank you for your tithes, to say thank you to our community for who put this service together. It takes a whole community to make this happen throughout the week. Many, many thank yous from many, many different groups that we have here that you can all check out online if you want to start to serve in a different way in the church. If you're bored with where you're serving and you want to do something different, check out the church, right? I'm thinking about every area I'm bored now. All right. It's true, though. I like that. I like it. If you want to try something different, definitely we've got a lot of opportunities. Special thank yous this week to our Angels of the Week, Hannah, Malik, Zinkai, Sharon, Jim, and Mike. Also special thank yous to, we like to call out specific teams, because if we did all the teams every week, we'd be here for about a couple hours. So our teams this week: bookstore team, where you'll be getting your book; maintenance and grounds team; hospitality team, which feed us, Frank; and greeting team, which greet us as we come in. Thank you so much. Can I have the board members stand? These are our board members. These beautiful souls are the steerers of the ship. Is that right? You kind of make big decisions for us. So we thank you. It's a volunteer position. So thank you for the hard work that you continually do. Okay, look at Brian's already here. I didn't even see you come up. You're getting better. Brian is also our sound man as well, if any of you are new. This guy's amazing. He does a lot. Talk about serving.
So I'm really back there right now, but I'm not.
Yeah, exactly. So here we are again.
You all appreciate it when I run, because I forget that I have to be up here.
Exactly. That's why I'm like surprised you're here.
Right.
Brian Dozer.
It's time. It's time. Time for the dead and gone. It's time for the broken ones to live again. It's time. It's time for the dead to rise. It's time for the wings to fly, to live again. I can hear the calling. I can hear the sound of rain. Over the mountains and over the valleys, I hear the calling. It's time. Over the mountains, over the valleys, I hear the calling. And it's time. It's time. It's time for the dead to sing. It's time for the walls to ring with songs of freedom. It's time. It's time for the numb to feel. It's time for the wounds to heal with songs of freedom. I can hear the calling. I can hear the sound of rain. Over the mountain, over the valleys, I hear the calling, and it's mountains and over the valleys. I hear the calling. It's time. Oh, it's time. It's time for the tide to turn. It's time for our hearts to burn with a desperation. It's time for a sacrifice. It's time that we paid the price for our generation. Oh, I can hear the calling, I can hear the sound of rain. Over the mountains and over the valleys, I hear the calling. It's time. Over the mountains, over the valleys, I hear the calling. It's time. Take it, Keith. The mountains, over the valleys, I hear the calling, and it's time. Over the mountains, over the valleys, I hear the calling. It's time. It's time for the dead to rise. Yes, it's time for the wings to fly. I hear the calling. It's time. It's time for the numb to feel. Yes, it's time for the wounds to heal. I hear the calling, and it's time. Oh, it's time that we pay the price. Yes, it's time for a sacrifice. I hear the calling, and it's time. Here we go. Over the mountains, over the valleys, I hear the calling, and it's time. Over the mountains, over the valleys, I hear the calling. It's time. Let me just hear your voices. Here we go. Over the mountains and over the valleys, I hear the calling, and it's time. Over the mountains and over the valleys, I hear the calling, and it's time. Here we go. Bring it home. Over the mountains, over the valleys, I hear the calling, and it's time. Over the mountains, over the valleys, I hear the calling, and it's time.
Just give it on out. Thank you, choir. Thank you, Keith, Stevie, Mike Bruin, and you.
Let's stay on our feet as we welcome in our youth and family. Bring in the kids, walking as the light.
We are walking at the light of God. 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 We are walking, we are walking. Oh, we are walking at the light of God. We are walking, we are walking. Oh, we are walking at the light of God.
Good morning. We had 3 separate groups today. We had 2-year-olds, we have this awesome group of girls, and then we had teenagers. So awesome. 5 teenagers. And Susan, she's a teenager. And Susan came to facilitate our conversation today, and she's going to be doing some healings for the kids for a love offering in the children's room. So if anybody's interested, come on in, have a conversation. And the other thing I wanted to share is last weekend I went to Richmond, Virginia, to the Unity Youth Leadership Program, which many of you have contributed to support our kids to go to these things. I've never experienced it. It was really awesome. These kids want to have conversations. They have really powerful conversations. So I thank you for contributing, continuing to contribute, because we have these kids that are here every week, and they're hitting that time when it's time for them to start to go to rally, and it's really powerful. So thank you.
And as you've no doubt been seeing in the news recently, it is the youth, it is the kids that are transforming our world and this planet. So let us hold the intention that all our youth, not just here in this building, in this region, but across the country, are empowered with these unity teachings and courage to go and do transform the world. So let us hold that intention. Stand. Hold the hand of your neighbor. Hold the intention for the children, for ourselves, that there is and there will be peace on earth. And it begins with us.
The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And we are richly blessed.
And so it is.